This is another podcast featuring your Marijuana Cultivation Cannabis Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Glansberg, broadcasting from James A. Garfield Studios. Super happy to have you here. We need each and every one of you. Don't forget to email me at contactmccpod@gmail.com. That's contactmccpod@gmail.com. Also check out my Instagram, mccpod. That is M as in marijuana, C as in cultivation, and C as in, well, cannabis. MCC Pod. So, today's topic, lighting, and why it matters so darn much. Whether you're a first-time grower or a seasoned grower, with the technology changing as quickly as it is, hopefully we can all get some value out of this topic. Today we're going to explore different types of lighting, the importance of the light spectrum, and how to set up your grow for maximum yield. Plus we'll tackle some listener questions as always, and end with the latest cannabis news. So why is lighting so important? Well, cannabis plants rely on light for their food. Now, this is a process called photosynthesis. This is the process where they convert light into energy for growth. Don't ask me how. The better your light setup, the better your plants can grow. Simple as that. But the type of light, how you use it, and understanding the specifics like the light spectrum and intensity will all play a huge role in how successful your grow will be. So what are the different types of lighting? Let's start by breaking down the different types of lights that you might consider using as a cannabis plant grower. We'll start with fluorescent lights, and these are typically used by beginners or for seedlings and clones. They're affordable and don't generate much heat, but they do lack the intensity needed for the flowering stage. Our next type of light is called HID, or high intensity discharge lights. These include metal halide and high pressure sodium lights. They're powerful and have been a staple for many years, but they can run hot, so that requires good ventilation. I even know some back in the day had fans attached to the lights to keep them cool. The HID lights versus the LED lights is kind of a topic of controversy right now in the cannabis growing world. Seems like a lot of the old school guys swear that that old traditional HID type of light produces better plants. But I've grown some damn good plants with LED lights. And these have surged in popularity because they're energy efficient, they produce way less heat, and can be customized to provide the exact light spectrum that your plants need, even between stages. And they're more expensive up front, but they're a great long-term investment, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the light spectrum. Boring, but should still cover it. The light spectrum refers to the range of wavelengths of light that your plants can use for photosynthesis. Cannabis plants benefit from different parts of the spectrum at various stages of growth. The blue spectrum, which is the range between 400 and 500 nm. This is ideal for vegetative stage, promoting strong leaf and stem growth. The red spectrum, 600 to 700 nm, is crucial for the flowering stage, encouraging bud development. Modern LEDs can often adjust their spectrum, which makes them so versatile, and that's kind of why we like them. Whereas HID lights typically require you to switch bulbs between the vegetative and flowering stage. Let's go over some terms that you're going to encounter when you're talking to your grow shop about the lights or when you're searching around online for your lights. First, PAR, P-A-R, photosynthetically active radiation. This is the portion of the light spectrum that plants can use for photosynthesis, between 400 and 700 nanometers. The higher the PAR value, the more useful light your plants are getting. Next, PPFD, aka photosynthesis. Man, these photo words tripping me up. Photosynthetic photon flux density. This measures the amount of PAR light reaching your plants, typically measured in micromoles per square meter per second. If you do have access to measuring tools that can give you this information, a good target for that vegetative stage is around 400 to 600 ppfd, and for flowering, we're going to aim for 600 to 900. Watch out for going over 1,000 though, unless you're supplementing it with CO2. Okay. Now, how do we set up our lights? Light placement is key. Too close, and you risk burning your plants. Too far away, and they won't get enough light, aka food. To get started, think about putting your fluorescents 6 to 8 inches away from the canopy. With HID lights, we have a range between 12 and 24 inches away, depending on the wattage. And with LEDs, we're going to want it about 18 to 24 inches away. But there's a little bit more range with those LEDs, so follow the manufacturer recommendations on that one. They will tell you. Remember that even light distribution across your canopy is key. So we can achieve that one way with lighting, like we're talking about now, reflective materials like mylar, side lighting. But in a future episode, another way to make sure that we're getting even light distribution across the canopy is to make the canopy form to get equal light distribution using light stress training. Again, that'll be a topic for another day. So let's talk about the different light cycles that you are going to, of course, have to remember when growing photoperiod plants. During the vegetative stage, most growers use an 18-6 cycle. I actually do a 20/4 cycle. It just seems like the latest tip of the research is showing that maybe a 24 might be a little bit better during your veg stage. But when we want it to switch to flowering, we are switching to flowering at having 12 hours of light into your plant and 12 hours of darkness. And this is total darkness. Get in your plant during the hour, or get in your tent during the hours that you expect it to be needing to be pitch black, and see if you can see any light. And if you can, fix it. Blackout curtains. Tape sides of those blackout curtains to make sure there's no light leaks. Taping over LED lights that might be shining bright in the room. This will help prevent Hermes as we go into the flowering stage, because the plants get confused when they see that light in the middle of their dark period and they start to grow balls, I think. I don't know. I just know it's bad. Another thing that we have to keep in mind when dealing with lights is managing their heat. Okay. Particularly, HID lights generate a lot of heat, which can stress your plants if not properly managed. And even LEDs, at full strength, are going to warm up your space quite a bit. So we need that ventilation still. For this reason and a million other reasons, we got to ensure good airflow within our inline fans and our exhaust systems. So maybe we don't need it for the RH quite yet, but we needed to get that temp down. We might bump up our inline fan power. You may need air conditioning. You're in a hot climate. I've seen those temperatures coming out of the US down south, and then also some over here closer to the UK with crazy hot climate summers. So I'm seeing folks just having to buy little window air conditioners for their lung room, and it's working out well. I would hate to add that expense if I could avoid it, but what can you do when you live on Satan's taint? All right, light timers. That's another thing that we want to keep in mind. Set your lights to turn off during the hottest part of the day to help control the temperatures. This is kind of counterintuitive. A lot of us are going to put our dark period at night and then have our lights on during the day just because that's when we're up and about and we're going to be opening our tent. But if you're in such a hot area where you have to do that, you have to do that. And your tent should already be able to handle midday lighting because it's been that blacked out. Your room has been that blacked out. So if you're able to do that, you're able to also keep it black enough when they go into flowering and avoid those Hermes issues. All right. Let's get into the on-topic listener questions that I received. Thank you very much again for sending those. Almost every day, or even sometimes twice a day, I'm recording, and prior and during my recording, I post on my Instagram, MCC Pod, asking for any questions you might have related to the topic I'm covering. So obviously today I said, hey, send me your cannabis lighting questions and we'll answer them on air, hopefully. So I got one. I'm using LEDs for the first time and I'm worried about light burn. How can I avoid it? Interesting. I'm not familiar with LEDs promoting light burn more than HIDs. We did mention earlier that the LED recommended range is further away from the HIDs. I think the HIDs, what did we say it was? 6 or something like that, 6 inches, whereas the LEDs was like something, 18 to 24 inches away. Start high and slowly move them toward the plants as they're handling it. Or if your LED lights have a dimmer, I would start with 50%. Give it a week, see how they respond. They're probably going to be praying for more light at that point. You can bump it to 60, wait another week, and keep going until they look good. What I do is I do sort of a dynamic light placement with my LEDs. And I've always done it and it's always worked just fine, so sticking with it. But I just always keep my LED lights 18 inches above the canopy. I think I have it at 60% strength during veg, and then I bump it up to 80% during flower, and it's a gradual transition up to that 80% over several weeks. Now, I will say, if for whatever reason I have a strain that needs more heat, I'll bump that light up to 100%, do some math that'll show you, hey, I want to keep the same amount of PARs on this part of the plant, but I want to turn the power up to 100% from 80% to get more heat. How much higher should I put the light? So you do the math, and feel free to reach out to me for that math. But it's like, okay, increase the height by 8 inches. So you go ahead and move your light up 8 inches. Your plants are getting the same light as before. The only difference is your tent is warmer. So if you're needing to warm up your tent for whatever reason, that's a cool way to do it. All right, on to another grow light related question. Here we go. I am growing in a small tent with HPS lights. How do I manage heat? So yes, again, these type of lights are going to be generating more heat than your LEDs. So it's something that these people that are growing with these have to deal with. And when they're saying that it grows a better product, I certainly don't blame them. If I truly believe that, I would be doing the same. And I think if my tastes weren't acquired on LED lights, I'm guessing I would be right there with them in lockstep. So I'm not bagging on them whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. I think my palate got formed under LED lights. So, we're going to first want to make sure that you have a strong exhaust fan. I notice when I am trying to get that heat up in my tent, but I get it up a little too high, I can just bump my inline fan power level up a couple notches, and I can, get my temperature within that tent down 5 degrees, just like that, which is probably plenty for whatever issue you're dealing with. Other considerations that you might want to do is, like we mentioned earlier, run that light cycle at a different part of the day. So keep your lights off at peak heat in your area and then turn them on in peak coolness. I know it's a little counterintuitive, but it is what it is, and that's just what some of us have to deal with in these really hot climates. All right. Last question. Can I use regular household LEDs to grow cannabis? I've seen this one asked a bunch, so I'll give you what I've heard and what I think without any actual eyes-on experience trying this, but I love the MacGyver idea of it. So these household LEDs, they do emit light, but the spectrum and the intensity for growing cannabis effectively is just not gonna be there. It's not made for that. It's made to give us the soft light that kind of mimics the lighting that we had 20, 30 years ago before we were all switching over to LED lights, and they were gross looking and bright and they hurt your eyes. And over the years, they've softened them through new technology to make them look like those old, whatever they were called back in the day, halogen lights. Okay, so they're not made for what we're doing whatsoever. It's worth investing in purpose-built LED grow lights, and they're going to provide the correct spectrum and intensity for your plants. They're built with plants in mind. There's other do-it-yourself ways to get lights going, but just grabbing some regular household LEDs to do it, I would not recommend. There's options for getting workbench lights that I've seen work for people. So there are very cheap options out there if you're trying to do it yourself more, but just those household LEDs, I don't think you're going to be happy with your time with them. Okay. Now for our least favorite segment, cannabis news. Well, depending on the day, I suppose. Like always, hopefully you can just turn this off in the future because marijuana is legal in the whole world, as it should be. But we are not there yet. So let's get into it. Let's sail on over to the United States with some disappointing news. A medical marijuana program is forced to expand after a deal on the recreational market fails. One positive, more patients are going to be eligible under new laws. So this is in New Hampshire, over there in the US. There were a series of new laws signed by Governor Chris Sununu, who are expanding Hampshire's medical cannabis program. The laws will broaden the list of qualifying symptoms to include generalized anxiety disorder. So, that's the one that anyone can get. So you're de facto legal now there, which is great. That's how California was for a long time. And then this will also allow healthcare providers to prescribe the drug to patients for any debilitating conditions that doctor sees fit. So this is it's disappointing the rec talks fell through, but I would have to imagine this de facto legalization, where if you have anxiety, you can get a card, will get us there quickly. As we mentioned a million times, this is just kind of the way it goes. I wish they could have figured out the rec right away, but in the meantime, these changes, and I keep mentioning it, the general anxiety disorder, everyone has anxiety, right? I mean, that's part of the human condition. So you can get a card there, de facto legal. Obviously, prices ain't going to be great, but you get that card, and at least you don't have to worry so much as you had to in the past. So that's cool. So we'll take it. Good job over there in the U.S. Now, staying over there in the U.S., I came across an interesting article that touches on the subject that we've mentioned a million times on the show. Whereas, the market when it comes to marijuana, because it is so much different than every other market, essentially, that we have in the U.S. It's legal here, it's not legal there. Why does it cost more there? Why does it cost more here? What's taking so long for prices to come down? Why are prices so low right away? Why are businesses dropping out so quickly? So I thought this was a cool article that would give us more of a frame of reference for that idea. So this is a study into why is recreational marijuana more expensive in Ohio than in Michigan. And I'm sure people in Illinois want to know too. I know so many people that tell me they go from Illinois to Michigan. Even though they're legal in both spots, they save money going to Michigan. So by Taylor Nemo from Cincinnati in the WCPO Cincinnati newspaper. With recreational marijuana now legal in Ohio, many have wondered why costs are higher there than dispensaries in Michigan or other states. While high prices may be frustrating now, those in the cannabis industry say you can take a deep breath. UC Blue Ash economics professor Keshar Geimer looked at the prices. The flower is about 5 times more expensive in Ohio right now. And edibles are almost double what's available in Michigan, he said. It's not really surprising at all. David Craig, Chief Marketing Officer of Illicit from the Earth Dispensaries, said prices will remain elevated for the next few months, but this is standard. It's like a blackout date in terms of like going to Disneyland on the 4th of July or going to a cannabis dispensary on 420, Craig said. This whole first month or two is going to feel like 420, and you're going to have these just huge rushes as people want to buy cannabis. Craig has witnessed the transition happen in other states, as we've mentioned here on this podcast. He explains what typically happens as cannabis markets make the switch from strictly medical to rec, again mentioning that path of med to rec that we see over and over again. He goes on to say, there's a lag behind the industry catching up to the demand for recreational purchases, he said. And we all know why this happens. There's so many regulations and anti-baking rules in place for these companies. It's hard for them to get going. Anyway, I digress. Going on with the article. He said during that time frame, prices do tend to become higher. Licensing also plays a role in pricing. In Michigan, licensing there has been very free and less restrictive, Craig said. It's easy to get a license. There's more of them about. As a result, most people lower the prices. Jason Erks with Cresco Labs agreed. He said states like Ohio and Illinois have a limited license structure where there are only so many businesses approved. When too many businesses open up, the market can become saturated. We've talked about this in other episodes too. Prices will then drop, but he said many businesses ended up failing. Craig's message to Ohioans is to give it some time. He said prices will drop significantly eventually. I think that's enough news. Trying to be worldwide on the news, and I know a lot of it lately has been US focused, but as we get past election season, I think that will change quite a bit. I think there'll be less news coming out of the US, or maybe we'll just always see a lot of news out of the US because their states are doing one thing and the federal government is doing another, so it might be endless content. I don't know. We'll see. Some final thoughts. Lighting is a critical aspect of growing cannabis, and getting it right at first will make all the difference in the world for your harvest. Whether you're using those LEDs, HIDs, or fluorescents, you got to understand that light spectrum, placement, and cycles to optimize your grow. So thank you for joining me on this deeper dive into cannabis lighting. If you have more questions or need further clarification, don't hesitate to reach out to me at contactmccpod@gmail.com. That's M as in Mary, C as in cannabis, C as in cannabis again. So, stay tuned. Our next episode, we will explore another fun topic. Send me your emails. Talk to you later. Peace.